All right. Is my mic working? Check, 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 check. Hello, hello, hello. All right. Um, don't worry about my face. Been a rough couple of days. Let me mute this so I don't have to listen to it go ding, ding, ding. Been a rough couple of days. But it's mainly COVID burnout and my CPTSD. Um, Don't mind me. I'm fine. I'm okay. I'm just sound a little shaky. Anyway, welcome to Autism Chat. It is Friday morning, 9:02 a.m. on January the 29th. I am your host, Pearl Manhattan. Who is Pearl Manhattan? Well, among many other things, I have a 15-year-old. I got to remember to say 15. He just turned 15, and I'm still saying he's 14. After working so hard to try and get him to say, I'm 15. 15-year-old son with autism. He is non-conversational. Hello, Lisa. It's Joey's World. Welcome to the chat. I'm so glad to see you here. Uh, this is live. However, if you were watching the replay, thank you for taking time out of your day to spend on me. I appreciate that so much. Leave me a comment down below. Replay squad. Comment. I will reply to your comment. I love getting all up in the comments and replying and talking to my viewers. Community. That's what we're trying to build here. I go live 2 other times during the week. I go live on Sunday afternoons at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. We do arts and crafts. We do therapeutic art. We let our creativity run wild. I do demos. I come up with neat things. This Sunday is January 31st, and it is National Inspire Your Heart with Art Day. So we will be looking at some art. I'll have some pictures of some art to show. Car Key Carol, hi, how are you? So great to see you in here today. And we'll be making some art. I think I might pull out canvas and my paints and just paint something. Feel free to paint along with me. You can use finger paints, you can use watercolors, you can use whatever you got. You can use crayons. Maybe I'll pull out some of my coloring books and I'll color for a while. I love coloring books. Coloring books are so therapeutic. Because they let you express your creativity, and a lot of times when we're feeling frustrated, we're feeling upset, it's because we're not feeling creative. We're not feeling successful. So sometimes a coloring book or painting or writing a poem or writing a song or cooking. Cooking is an art. Cooking something that's good for you, or maybe not so good for you, like cookies or cakes, something. But we're going to inspire our hearts with art this Sunday. And then February the 1st, I am starting what is called February Album Writing Month. It is for the whole month of February, 14 songs in 28 days. And my Wednesday shows for all of February will be me doing some form of songwriting, music composition, something like that. Come in, you can chill and chat, you can lurk and listen. It's going to be a lot of fun. And that is Wednesdays at 12 noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. And then we have our autism chats. This week, I am talking about something that a lot of people don't think about. And I've even made a PowerPoint. How about that? And I want to stress, I'm not attacking anyone. And this is not meant to holler out at anyone. I want this to be a safe place where we can talk about things that maybe are hard to talk about, but I want everyone to feel comfortable here. And so please know, I'm not making drama. I'm not calling anybody out or anything. This is something that is very important in my world because of my son, but also because of me, because I have some invisible disabilities that aren't apparent. Chronic illness. I have fibromyalgia. I have CPTSD. And there are people with Crohn's disease. There are people with multiple sclerosis. There are people with cerebral palsy that by looking at them, you may not know offhand. Autism is an invisible disease. And with these invisible diseases, sometimes we're not as inclusive as we could be to people with invisible diseases. But anyway, let me get into, because I worked hard on this. I worked on this yesterday and today. So, and you got to understand with PowerPoints, and I'm going to wander off topic here for a minute. When I started into the working world, I was an administrative assistant for a small community action agency program, and I had a manual, I had an electric typewriter, but it was just a typewriter. And, you push on the keys, and you had to use the whiteout tape. I actually have some of that around here somewhere. The whiteout tape, and put the little piece in there and correct your typing that way. Once it was on the paper, it was on the paper, and you had to. Johnny Sins, hello, nice to see you. Welcome in. I'm glad you're here. We're chatting about inclusion today. I hope you'll enjoy the conversation and join in if you have things to add. But they brought me a typewriter that was a little more advanced, that would hold a line of typing, and then you hit enter and it would type it on the page. But we didn't have word processors. Computers came into view once I was almost graduate. Your little red wagon. Oh my goodness, it has been a minute since I have seen you. So nice to see you. Welcome in. I'm glad you're here. Your little red wagon. I can't remember your first name. Gah. The Steel Trap. I've known Little Red Wagon now for, 3 or 4 years. Excellent friend of mine, except I can't remember her name. But we met on a crafting forum a bunch of years ago. And she understands autism and invisible disabilities, also has a lot of experience with it. And so welcome in. I'm glad you're here. Renee, that's right. Yay, you know your name today. Woohoo. That's right. You're Renee. So sorry. It's this year last year took a toll on me up here. Anyway, so making a PowerPoint presentation is something I had to figure out all on my own, and ended up teaching PowerPoint in a strip mall business college. But so I'm really proud of my PowerPoints. Anyway, that was a long way around to say absolutely nothing. Today we're talking about inclusion. So, inclusion is a right, not a privilege for the select few. We've done a lot as a country in inclusion, especially in our schools. And in our businesses, we have an act, the ADA Act, that tells businesses and builders and industry how wide a doorway has to be to accommodate a wheelchair. How you have to have a ramp if you have someone in a wheelchair. You can't have stairs because that shuts out people in wheelchairs. You have to have Braille on your signs for the vision impaired. We do inclusion in the Disney community in a lot of our live streams, in that we don't allow caps. because it messes with our visually impaired folks who use a screen reader to hear the chat because they can't read it. We do a lot to be inclusive, making things accessible for everybody. Another way was when they introduced Public Law 94-142, that all children were entitled to a free, appropriate public education. That was the beginnings of mainstreaming and putting the least restrictive, meaning that, just because someone had a disability did not mean they were necessarily intellectually challenged. So a student in a wheelchair could still attend general education mainstream classes. They didn't have to be in a special classroom just because they had issues with their legs or they couldn't walk long distances, things like that. A student with asthma could be on the track team under a doctor's direction and care. So that's what that was. And so we're getting better with it, but there's still a lack of inclusion. Inclusion means all people, regardless of their abilities, disabilities, or healthcare needs, have the right to, one, be respected and appreciated as valuable members of their communities. That's not to say that we hold up or make special. We don't put anybody above or below anybody else in that community. Adaptive is a big word with inclusion. We make things adaptive where everyone has a chance to succeed. Now, that's not saying that everybody gets a trophy. That's not what I'm talking about. But everyone, we level the playing field so that everyone has a chance to be successful to the best of their ability. Our current president had a severe stutter when he was a youngster. And to this day, sometimes in speeches, you can hear where that stutter will come back a little bit. But if we didn't have the inclusion, if he did not experience inclusion in the least restrictive environments, he may not be our president this day because of that stutter. James Earl Jones, another person with a stutter. It is a neurological disability to have a stutter. It's not just, not just one of those weird quirks. It's a neurological disability. And James Earl Jones overcame his stutter because he was given the ability to. The playing field was leveled. An invisible disability is still a disability. You can't see germs. Does that mean they're not there? Well, of course they're there. We all know germs are there. Just because a person's not in a wheelchair, or just because they don't have physical evidence of a disability. My son is a perfect example. If you just saw my son sitting, watching TV, or playing on his iPad, or sitting at a desk in school, you'd have no clue he was disabled. Autism is an invisible disability. There are some people who have autism who are very high functioning, and you'd never know. You could hold a conversation with them. Exactly, car key. Yeah, and sensory processing issues are one of the invisible disabilities. My son reacts poorly to sirens, and he can hear a siren miles away, and he'll cover his ears and start going wee-oo, 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 and people around him don't know what's going on, and they think, wow, that kid's wigging out. Well, no, he has a sensory processing disorder. Sirens trigger him. And that's another thing that I hope we can get into is about triggers and what exactly they are And because that word has taken on a very negative connotation in our society, and triggers are very real to the people who experience them. And I think we minimize others' disabilities by not appreciating their triggers and their limitations. Anyway, anybody want to add anything so far? Feel free to jump in the chat and share it. I'm not giving a lecture here. This is called Autism Chat. So, and yeah. Next, I want to talk about ableism. It's a word that pops up and it's considered jargon, but it really is a thing, and it really happens more than you think. Ableism is the discrimination of and social prejudice against people with disabilities based on the belief that typical abilities are superior. Oh, your son can't do this. You know, in my case, ableism, and I'm gonna be frankly honest. My son is 15, and yes, he still wears diapers. He knows how to use the toilet. He just chooses not to. And no amount of discipline or reward or any other type of encouragement has worked so far. And trust me, I've tried all of them. Please don't email me and say, well, have you tried this? Yes, I've tried it all. He just refuses to get rid of the diapers. And to be honest, if it was socially acceptable, there are times when most of us would prefer to wear a diaper than have to get up and go to the bathroom. And that's what it is. It's a laziness for him. But anyway, my son cannot attend camps or day camps or recreational things unless I go with him to take care of his toileting, because no one will make the accommodation for what appears to be a perfectly normal child with diapers. Never mind that my son does know how to clean himself up and doesn't choose to run around with a messy, soiled diaper. As soon as it becomes soiled, he goes and cleans it up, cleans himself up. I'm very hands off with that. He's 15. He knows how to do this. But he is excluded because his behavior is not considered typical. And so you can't do this because you aren't this. That's ableism. At its heart, ableism is rooted in the assumption that disabled people require fixing. And Rachel, hello. So good to see you here, dear. We're talking about inclusion today. So feel free to. There are people who have issues with different autism organizations because they feel those organizations are all about curing, and they feel that their autism is not a handicap but a feature. Okay. I had a point and it just kind of fizzled off into space. I haven't had enough coffee yet this morning. Anyway, the hardest part. Oh, Rachel, I'm so sorry about your dad. He's had a rough time this past year, hasn't he? Prayers for your dad. Everybody put hearts in the chat for Rachel's dad. And we're sending healing energy, Rachel, for you and your dad. Meltdowns are called tantrums, as if the child is just being difficult or misbehaving generally. Oh my goodness. I I guess it was about 10 years ago. And I ended up unfriending a lot of people for this. Titanosaur, that's my man, my man, my man. I got to take a minute and tell y'all about Titanosaur. He's a fellow musician that I met from February Album Writing Month. He's also well versed in the disabled community, and he's here today. He actually took one of my lyrics that was very near and dear to my heart, and he messaged me when he read the lyric, and he said, I wanna do something with this, because I understand it. And he turned it into a song, and he has it out on one of his albums. He has albums. They're all over Spotify and everything else. Do a search for Titanosaur. But Titanosaur, great friend. Known him for years. He's a good guy. Really good guy. And a lot of fun. He is a lot of fun. But the hardest part of my son's autism was accepting that this is who he is, and accepting that there's not a cure, there's not a magic pill. And it's kind of the same thing with my fibromyalgia and my CPTSD. There's not a cure. I'm not going to get well. I'm going to learn how to adapt to the real world in my, mental hell. But the Ray Gun Girls, that's right. Yeah, the Ray Gun Girls. Did both of them, because we did No Chicks Allowed, which is a surfer song about a group of guys. It's about ableism. It actually is, because it's a group of guys, and they've taken over part of a beach. And they're saying, this is a boys-only beach, no chicks allowed. And the girls go in and show them that they can surf better than the boys. And in the end, the girls take over the beach from the boys. It's definitely a song about ableism. But adapting, and especially with invisible illnesses, we have been taught as a society that you get sick, you go to the doctor gives you pills or treatment or surgery or whatever, and then you're better. You get well. And there are a lot of disabilities, especially invisible disabilities, that there is no getting well. There's adapting. And my son, prime case of that. And that was one of the hardest things to do, was realize that I was being ableist in thinking that if I just took him to enough therapy and I just bought enough sensory things, that I could cure him. And a lot of cases, there's no cure. So, like racism and sexism, ableism classifies entire groups of people as less than, and includes harmful stereotypes with misconceptions, generalizations of people with disabilities. I've talked a lot about the early days of autism, when people with autism were put in and I can't say the R word. You all know what it is. It means slow. But they were put in the slow people's classes. They grouped all of the disabled students into one group and they assumed that if you had a disability, it affected you intellectually. So all of these students were put in one classroom for slow kids. And that's ableism. And luckily today, that's what has essentially made our in-laws estranged from our family, not accepting that our son will not get better from not only autism, but his many extreme medical issues. Yes. If you have a chromosome disorder, Fragile X, or something like that, they can't fix your genes. you know? You can patch your JEANS, yes, but GENES, you can't fix your genes. You can't take a pill and change a chromosomal disorder. Things like that. Yeah, but people, we've been taught as a society that when you are sick, when you are not typically normal, you go to the doctor and the doctor fixes you. And that's we need to get out of that mentality. What does ableism look like? It's a lack of compliance with disability rights laws like the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act. Like I said, I live in an ADA compliant apartment. It means my doorways are wide enough to accommodate a wheelchair. It means the bathrooms are large enough to accommodate. I have special railings in the bathrooms for handholds to transfer to the toilet or into the shower. Your county city building will always have a ramp as well as stairs. Braille on all of the signage. McDonald's will give you a Braille menu if you ask for one, or an auditory one. They'll give you a pictograph if your hearing is compromised. They will give you pictographs. So separate schools. We do this less and less. But for the first 9 years of my son's schooling, he was stuck in a self-contained classroom, and he spent most of his days sitting in an isolated room in a beanbag playing with video games. That was ableism. He couldn't keep up with the big kids, so they just set him in the corner. The funny thing is, since we've been online all year and my son reconnected his one school friend online, he's having the best year ever. He just doesn't feel okay in crowds. Yes, and that's one thing I have said about this remote learning and this remote environment that we've all been living in. For people like me, I don't like crowds. I don't like going outside. I don't like driving. I don't like being in groups of people. For me, the online environment, I've been thriving. All right, Carol, glad you had a good lunchtime with us. I hope you have a great afternoon, dear. But my son, who sees online as a television, he doesn't interact socially anyway, and especially not with his TV programs. So the online environment for my son has been segregating and secluding instead of including. The use of restraint or seclusion is a means of controlling students with disabilities. Oh yeah, lock rooms. We've read the news stories. We've heard all about them. A lot of schools don't reveal that they have seclusion rooms for students with behavioral disabilities and such. Segregating adults and children with disabilities into institutions. You need to just send your child to the state hospital and let him go. Michael and Bella's Travel Channel, good morning. Glad to see you here. So happy to see you. Welcome in. I'm guessing this is Michael. Anyway, Braille, pictures, buildings without Braille on signs, elevator buttons, building community. There is a lot of inclusion in that we try to put closed captioning on our videos as much as possible. We have rules about how we chat because certain, all capitals or things like that can mess up with screen readers. I feel like I've had a hug from you. So nice to see you. Look forward to seeing you again, and I'll be in your streams too. The assumption that people with disabilities want or need to be fixed, using disability as a punchline or mocking people with disabilities. This is a big one. Our former president was good at that. making jokes, it's different. Yeah, I'm just going to leave that at that. Refusing to provide reasonable accommodations. I think we all have experience with that. There's nothing more debilitating about a disability than the way people treat you over it. People make jokes about things that people do. If you have a disability and people find out about it, you learn who has strange assumptions about them. Like when somebody is in a wheelchair, I learned it's proper etiquette to stoop down, and so you can look them in the eye instead of hovering over them. Body language, things like that. My son's nonverbal, so people feel like they have to talk louder to him. He has sensory issues, and he has a slower processing speed than most people. If you ask him a question, he's going to have to take a minute and process those words and run it through all the filters. It's kind of like a computer. His CPU just doesn't run as fast. He's brilliant, but because he takes a minute, people assume, oh, well, he doesn't talk, he must be deaf. And so they talk louder. Or because he speaks in very simple words, they think he's intellectually challenged. So they talk in baby talk. Does CJ want to, and that insults him big time. He loves to be treated like a young adult. So, there's nothing more debilitating about a disability than the way people treat you over it. Bullying. This is another hindrance to inclusion and bullying as a society. There are still things people do that are considered bullying that you may not realize. Verbal bullying. And I did a whole video. You go back through, I've got a video on bullying. I wrote it, I made the video because I'd been involved in a community that was nothing but drama, competition, and bullying. And I just had enough, and I had to say something. This was several years ago. Renee remembers it. Verbal bullying is saying or writing mean things like teasing, name-calling, inappropriate sexual comments, taunting, or threatening to cause harm. Those are bullying. And then, doing these things and then coming back and going, oh, it's just a joke. If your feelings are hurt, it's your fault. It's just a joke. No. These things are not okay. They're not okay. Because, group of friends, y'all know each other, you know what's going on, you're going to joke around, and that's fine. But in a public situation where you don't know who is listening or who is seeing what's going on, you can't control who's going to see that and not understand it's a joke. In this particular community, it was about using the R word, and they had been asked to not use this word, and they basically responded with, I'll use any word I want, and if your feelings are hurt, it's your fault. Well, no, I'm sorry, you're in a minority. The greater community in the world has decided that the R word is a slur and derogatory, and we don't use that word. So if you want to use that word, you need to understand and accept responsibility for your bullying. So yeah, that's verbal bullying. Social bullying includes leaving someone out on purpose, telling other children not to be friends with someone, spreading rumors about someone, or embarrassing someone in public. These are things we don't do. These are just things we don't do. They are bullying. And by the way, I got this from stopbullying.gov, the United States official government website on bullying. So that's my source for these. And then physical bullying involves hurting a person's body or possessions, hitting, kicking, pinching, and spitting, tripping, pushing, taking or breaking someone's things, making mean or rude hand gestures. So, are we really inclusive? I know I'm not always. How could we be more inclusive in our day-to-day lives? Our language, our actions, and our awareness. It's easy to think on the internet that you're in your own little group, but the internet is huge. And saying something on your own small little group, you know, if you were sitting around a table at home with your group of friends and you said it, no big deal. You're in your house. You can say what you want. You have a right to your own language. If you wouldn't stand on the steps of your Capitol building in front of a group of people and yell it out loud, you probably shouldn't say it in a public space on the internet. That's not just my opinion. That's what I taught in professional development when I was teaching, is that, you know, and yes, nothing has ever gone on the internet either. Nothing ever disappears. And once you put it in words on the internet, you can try and delete it, but it will always be there somewhere. I think people don't realize just how many others they influence. Like I said, it's easy to feel comfortable. Like right now, I'm talking to a camera. So there's, you know, and I've got people in my chat, but they could be bots or they could be real people. But I don't know how many people are going to watch this video. Like my bullying video. Right before I made that, I made an opinion video called I've Got Something to Say. It is the most viewed on my channel. It's got over 200 and something views. It's not a short. It's a long video. It's about 40 minutes. It's got 200 and something views. I had no idea. I was just making a rant because I had some things to say. And then it took off and it went viral. You never realize who's watching. So if you make comments that are disparaging, you make comments that are negative publicly, that is how people who don't know you are going to see you. There are drama channels, lots of drama channels in the beauty community, in the sports, in all the communities. There are drama channels. Those people have chosen to appear as drama hounds, you know, that sells, that's sexy. If you want to be a drama channel, that's fine. But understand that there are going to be people who are not into that kind of drama. And they're not going to have the positive, loving reaction that your close friends do, you know. So have I made everybody mad? I hope not. I've tried to be more informative than anything. I know I'm guilty. Like I said, I'm guilty of not being as inclusive as I could. Being inclusive does not mean overly politically correct or that you have to sacrifice anything of yourself. Just be who you are. I've had to cut off many folks because of their insistence on using these terrible terms under the guise of free speech. Yes. And that's a debate for a different day, but yes, we've lately, I think we've really opened up the dialogue about what exactly free speech is and what it isn't. Yes, this is my channel. Yes, I can say anything I want to say. But, excuse me, the online world is not your town square. I went to Mississippi State University in central Mississippi. And on the campus, there was an area that they had lined with coping bricks around the outside, and there was a little raised piece and a little statue in the center, a little like a monument or something, just small. It was the designated free speech area. You could stand in that area and talk about anything you wanted to talk about, as long as it wasn't violent or harmful. And by harmful, I mean endangering other people or yourself. The internet doesn't have any free speech areas because the platforms are privately owned. And so when you go on Facebook, it's like going into Facebook's building. And just like you wouldn't be able to walk up to other people in the building and call them all sorts of horrible words, you can't go on Facebook, on the website, and call people horrible words. It goes back to what I said a few minutes ago, in that if you're not allowed to stand on the steps of your state capital and say it, you probably shouldn't say it online. That's all I've got there. Like I said, I hope I haven't really made anybody mad. That was not my goal. I'm not calling anyone out or pointing fingers. I'm certainly not trying to be super righteous here, because I know there's a lot of ways I'm not inclusive, and I could do better at that. But I really needed to talk about this topic today. Mainly in light of everything we've been through in the past year. Yeah. So, anybody got anything else about inclusion? Stories, comments? You hated this, you loved it. Great PowerPoint. I hope you noticed my great PowerPoint. Let me go back over here now that I've finished all that. Yeah. Nice. My son is back at school. I emailed him the other day and said, hey, my son's really into calendars and he's into the weather. And his teacher went, oh, that's wonderful. For science, we can start graphing the weather every day. And for calendars, we can start making a calendar for him of what days he has school and what we're going to work on those days, and, get him a schedule and things like that. Thank you so much, Renee. Yes, it was a great PowerPoint. He's, his attitude, his communication, everything just blossoming. There is hope that we are coming out of our quarantine here in Washington State. Whether you agree with it or not, it's the way it is. It's what the government says. And personally, I don't like people telling me what to do. However, I like being alive. So my will to live is stronger than my rebellion against rules. So, but it looks like we may be moving to a stage out here where they will start opening restaurants and businesses and more recreational opportunities. So that's exciting for me. Um, and like I said, this Sunday, Inspire Your Heart with Art Day. And if you have any special art, that you enjoy, be it, a certain artist or things like that, feel free to email me and I will include that in our show. pearlmanhattanmusic@gmail.com. Also, check out my social medias below. Pearl Manhattan Music, at Pearl Manhattan for Twitter, and my webpage, pearlmanhattan.com. I'd like to thank Dean at the Live Place. Dean does a show on Monday and Friday where he highlights different creators, and I think he has said this morning it was almost 120 shows a week that he highlights on theliveplace.com. And we have special events. We have all sorts of fun. It is your TV guide for live streaming on YouTube. There are live streamers that are family friendly, meaning you're not going to get blindsided. You're not going to get words and situations you don't possibly want your kids or your grandma or yourself to be exposed to. They're totally family friendly. But in topics, everything. We have live streamers from the theme parks in Florida. We have people who are travel and RV people. We have cruise people talking about cruises when we'll get them. Oh my gosh, I'm sucking on a mint and it's all over my face. Why didn't somebody tell me? Cruisers talking about the cruise ships and the situation with that, when they're going to start being able to cruise again. And yeah, I still got it. I don't know that. I'm just a mess today. Don't mind me. Disabilities, arts and crafts, cooking. I know Cooking with Donna has taken off like you wouldn't believe. Every Sunday she cooks, and she cooks marvelous things. There's Meg, who is just fantastic with her art and her pin trading and things like that. I mean, there's just anything you want to know about. So check out theliveplace.com for your streaming guide for YouTube. I will be back Sunday, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, and then I will be back the following Wednesday, 9 a.m. West Coast, 12 noon on the East Coast. I thank you so much for giving me a little bit of your time today and for hanging out with me. It's always a pleasure to do these streams. They really make my days happy. Peace and blessings upon you, upon all you love, and upon all who love you. Find your passion, grab a hold of it, and do not let anyone talk you out of it. You are special. You are loved. And again, special prayers for Rachel's dad. Tough times. Find something to make yourself happy today. Don't forget your self-care. Take care of yourselves. I love you, and I'll see you all Sunday. Bye.